Good morning. Welcome to Hindu Newspaper Analysis 29th November 2022. Anguish over NJAC order behind posting delay, Supreme Court. It is well evident that in every democracy, institutions are vital. On the wheels of institutions, democracy will enhance progress and it will deliver its justice. Institutions are quite critical in promoting democratic values. Unfortunately, sometimes you will find tussle between institutions. Here is a classic example about that kind of tussle. We have Supreme Court of India on one side and Executive on the other side. The whole issue began decades back. However, in a recent media conference, Kiran Rijiju, the Honorable Law Minister, observed that, and I quote, "Collision is alien to the Constitution," quote unquote. Here, the observations came about the collision because collision system, if you go back to your basics, it evolved in a series of judgments famously called as three judge cases, first judgment, second judge cases and third judge cases. From the evolution time onwards, collision is considered as alien to the Constitution from the executive. To change this appointment of judges process, under 99th Amendment, Government of India decided to bring certain changes. Under 99th Amendment, it created National Judicial Appointment Commission, and this commission given the duty of appointment of judges, which includes judicial members as well as legislature members also. Taking note of this development, under its constitutional review, Supreme Court of India struck down the provisions of 99th Amendment, particularly the so-called concept of NJAC. After that, there is no initiative from executive or legislature to change the appointment of judges procedure. Clearly, Supreme Court of India mentioned that any intervention into the judicial appointments will hamper the independency of the judicial system in India. And this was what happened in the background. Now, after the conference, the Honorable Minister comments put forward into the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court of India clearly showed its anguish over the delay in postings. And this is what happened till now. Let us wait and watch for the next developments in this issue. Same rights, as relation change, rights on freedom and liberties must expand. So here, the editorial author talks about the recent Supreme Court observation, and it even asked government to widen the scope of LGBTQIA plus marriages. Let us examine this in a different manner. We are well aware that marriage in India comes under civil law. And there are certain laws. For example, we have Indian Christian Marriage Act 1872, Muslim Personal Law Application Act 1937, Hindu Marriage Act 1955. Unfortunately, these three important laws neither define what is a legal marriage between two homosexuals, nor it doesn't give any definition about marriage among the two homosexuals. Now, this issue was highlighted in series of judgments. After Navtoz Singh Johar case, it became a very popular issue that LGBT do have some rights. Apart from that, right to privacy judgment from the case, Puttaswamy also highlighted the need to have privacy among individuals. Here, in Arun Kumar and Srija versus Inspector General of Registrar in 2019, Madras High Court mentioned that a bride means trans woman, even intersex. It even broadened the scope of marriage, and it accepted the marriage between two trans women and even homosexuals. The judgment given in this Arun Kumar case by Madras High Court was put forward, and it was put forward before the Supreme Court. And even Supreme Court, in the other judgment, which is Shafin Jahar versus Ashokan case, which is also called as Hadia case, stated a beautiful thing. It said, and I quote, in famous Hadia case, Supreme Court said, and I quote, right to choose partner considered as constitutionally guaranteed freedom. Marriage is privacy. Society doesn't have any role in deciding that particular step, that is marriage. So it is clearly stated that marriage comes under Article 14, 15, 21. Any interference, any prohibition orders, any kind of restrictions violates the constitutional rights. And it is well known fact that the rights for the LGBTQ community is also rising throughout the globe. Around 29 countries accepted this gay as homosexual marriages. Let us wait and watch for the next developments in this issue. Next article, still a nightmare for domestic violence survivors. This article highlights about a research orientation program, not very much important for our exam writing point of view also. However, certain things mentioned in the article are quite interesting and we can have discussion in another point of view. This topic comes under General Studies paper 1 of Indian Civil Service Examination, and it comes under the section called as Indian Society Main Issues. According to NCRB, National Crime Records Bureau Report 2021, around 31,000 rape cases filed in India. Nearly, it is said that almost 49 cases against women were lodged against the women in a single hour. Unfortunately, others dedicated their writing towards the domestic violence. Domestic violence in India is also rising. If you see the newspaper reports in COVID, during the COVID time, Ministry of Women and Child Development mentioned that 200% rise in the domestic violence cases. And there are several challenges here. We have to understand that the domestic violence is also comes under violence against women, and very recently United Nations observed 25th November as a day of elimination of violence against women. In fact, UN ordered that from 25th November to 10th December, that is Human Rights Day, until that there should be a series of events on the steps for the elimination of violence against women. It is very interesting fact from the Indian Constitution. Article 15 clause 1 mentions about the prohibition of discrimination against women. Article 15 clause 3 talks about women protection, special provisions for the women protection, special provisions for the women and children, and even fundamental duties also highlights it's the duty of every Indian to shun derogatory practices against women. However, unfortunately, domestic violence is one of the silent epidemic in Indian society. National Family Health Survey reports mentioned that there is a culture of silence and normalization of women about the domestic violence. In previous reports, they mentioned that 60% of women in the village areas, they will accept the domestic violence, physically, mentally, or even emotionally. Here we need to understand that others highlighted that almost 32% of women in India are facing this challenge. Unfortunately, only 14% will give complaints. There are several reasons why they are unable to raise complaints. Number one is they are financially not independent and they are worried about their child's future, and also they are coming under the serious pressure from the families and even particularly from the mothers or parents. So this normalization or culture of silence is promoting domestic violence into Indian society. And others suggested that there is huge pregnancy in the cases. Almost cases filing is also a delay issue. Some will appear within the 6 months, some will carry that domestic violence for a few years and later they will respond. Ultimately, this is what they are going to see, they are going to face in the society. So there is a high need for taking care of domestic violence victims and their protection. Fortunately, we do have Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. This Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act clear cuts detailed protection of women in situations of domestic violence. So it provides certain rights, that is, you can get protection and free legal aid under the Act. Apart from that, complaint will be registered under 498A of IPC. Further, Act also provides shelter homes to protect your life, and even it provides free medical aid to the people who are facing this domestic violence. Unfortunately, there are several loopholes in the implementation. Women are not able to get the right about the right, and they are not able to get the protection. Lack of awareness is one important reason. So we need to create more awareness about this. The best way is to strengthen the Anganwadis, ANM workers, self-help groups. These people can definitely provide more awareness about domestic violence cases. Next article, India France discuss defense industrial ties make in India. So now we are going to witness fourth Indo-France annual defense dialogue, and for this we are having a series of talks going in the Delhi. Now what is interesting is France is one of the age-old defense partner for India. For example, if you go to Anglo-Mysore Wars, so Indian prince, that is Indian king Tipu Sultan, supported by France. So that is our historical relations about the defense point of view. And here France is a very strategic player in strengthening India's defense position. In military wise, we have Varuna, a naval exercise, and also we have Garuda 6, which started in 2010, which is also Air Force exercise, and very recently, that is in 2011, not very recently, we do have defense exercise in the name of Shakti. So Shakti is for army forces, Garuda is for air forces, and Varuna is for navy forces. Apart from that, India is for the first time ever they sent Indian troops to the guest of honor in a Bastille Day celebrations 2009. In addition to this, France is an associate partner in Indo-Pacific dialogue, and they are keenly focusing on strengthening India's position in the maritime domain. We do have counter-terrorism operations, and also France supporting No Money for Terror, an international conference led by India this year. Apart from that, France helped India in strengthening its defense position. For example, it's Rafale, which are strengthening our air force, and they also part of our submarine program. Like submarine, they are also strengthening our submarines program. 6 Scorpion submarines are built by French company itself. So there is a reciprocal logistics support in which France can use India's logistics during the time of any emergency operations. Even India can use logistics of France. Next article, Mumbai tops in sale of poll bonds following Kolkata, Hyderabad, most enhanced in Delhi. It is well known fact that Finance Bill 2017 brought the idea of the concept, and Finance Act 2017 provided the legitimate electoral bonds. Electoral bonds are simply like P notes, promissory notes, and here they can be purchased from the SBI dedicated branches, and you can buy by providing your KYC in terms of denominations of 1000, 10,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakh, or 1 crore. And there you can purchase only for 10 days in specified month like January, April, July, October. And here you cannot donate to every party. There is eligibility condition. Section 29A of Representation of Peoples Act 1951 stated that parties secured not less than 1% of votes polled in the last general elections and to the House and Assembly, they are eligible to buy these bonds. There is a severe criticism about these electoral bonds, but we will discuss that in the time comes. Center plans to document cultural, social practices of indigenous tribal societies. This article highlights about the recent Government of India decision, that is to digitalize the documentation of cultural, social practices of tribal communities. And here, one thing is important, that is Conservation of culture definitely help the people to understand their roots and to strengthen to preserve their original cultures. It is a welcome step. Let us wait and watch for the next developments. Next, Center must present correct info on GM mustard before Supreme Court. So Supreme Court directed that GM mustard crop, which was recently approved by Government of India under its apex body, Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, and UPSC previous question also, the question was about which is the apex authority in approving GM crops. That is GEAC, Genetically Engineering Appraisal Committee. So here GM mustard recently was put forward by Government of India. Let us wait and watch because Supreme Court asked correct information, and it is very well known fact that GM mustard is a herbicide tolerant crop, and you can read the article because further updates can be wrapped up in one discussion. Next, SBI projects Q2 GDP growth at 5.8. GDP in India essentially includes consumption and government investment, private investment, and even exports and imports. Right now, the demand in economy is rising, but the demand is not at the standard level. However, the recent estimates mentioned about GDP growth at 5.8%. So this is a welcome and positive step, and we need to focus on the revival of demand, particularly from the village area, which is need of the hour. Next article talks about Somali troops overpower militants to end hotel siege, 8 civilian killed. The word here we should remember is Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab is a famous terrorist group in Somalia. Apart from that, one has to locate the locations in particularly Horn of African countries. You're supposed to locate these countries because not only because of this high terrorist attacks, because of several issues. For example, Ethiopia and Eritrea is in news because of a conflict. Djibouti is in news because of Chinese presence. And please locate the relevant seas and also try to locate Bab al-Mandab, which is an important place, a strategic location. That's all for today. Thank you so much and Jai Hind.